You want to be strong in the real world, not gym strong, not selfie under down lightning strong, not the kind of strong where you can bench 3 plates but tweak your back lifting a suitcase. I'm talking about capability, durability, the kind of strength that lets you sprint up a hill, carry your busted fridge down 2 flights of stairs, or wrestle a sandbag that doesn't care about your macros. And if you're serious about that, you need to get to know the kettlebell. This isn't a fad tool. It's not just for guys with mustaches and suspenders who drink pour over coffee and call it training. The kettlebell is one of those most brutal efficient pieces of equipment ever created for building usable strength, power, and resilience. Today we're going to cut through the bullshit and break down the kettlebell moves that actually make you more capable in the real world. Now, why kettlebells? Why are kettlebells different than barbells, machines, and everything else in between? Well, here we go. Barbells build absolute strength. They're great at it. Machines build isolated muscle. Kettlebells build movement capacity. Think of kettlebells as the middle ground between heavy horsepower and chaotic reality. They don't let you lift as heavy as a barbell, and they're not as unhinged as a sandbag, but they give you your athletic carryover you can feel the second you step outside the gym. Now, I talk about kettlebells, barbells, sandbags, dumbbells, everything in between. They all have their place. Barbells, they're the king of load, best for max strength, measurable progress, and structured overload. But they have cons. They're locked in linear patterns, great for horsepower, but limited for real-world chaos. Sandbags, the pros are that they're actually pure chaos. The bag shifts, pulls, and forces every stabilizer to fight for dear life. Best for resilience and that awkward real-life strength. But, of course, there are cons. There are pure chaos. They are messy. That is actually a con, too. They're hard to measure, awkward to learn, and limited hypertrophy potential. The kettlebell, the pros here are that they're dynamic, asymmetrical, and portable. They will expose weak links, build condition, and teach power transfer. The cons are they're harder to load, heavy, technical learning curve, and progression jumps feel much bigger. But the kettlebells are the bridge. Where barbell gives you capacity, sandbags give you chaos, kettlebells give you that athletic coordination to make sure your horsepower translates and your resilience doesn't crumble. In other words, if you want to deadlift a car, you train barbells. You want to haul that car out of a ditch, train sandbags. You want to move like an athlete while doing both, train kettlebells. All right, let's get into the movements you really came here first. The first one, the kettlebell swing, the godfather of power. The swing is not cardio. You can make it into cardio, but it's not. And it's not just waving a kettlebell around until your forearms feel like beef jerky. Done right, the kettlebell swing is a ballistic hip hinge, which means it teaches you to produce and absorb force through your hips. Well, why does that matter? Because your hips are the powerhouse of human movement. Sprinting, jumping, climbing, lifting, that's all the hips, baby. Every time you swing, you're training hip extension under load, building glutes and hamstrings that can fire like a piston and absorb shock like a suspension system. You're also hammering your posterior chain, the exact muscles most desk slouch adults ignore until their back starts barking. Think lifting your kid without blowing out a disc. Think accelerating on a trail without tripping on your shoelaces. That's the swing, baby. Movement number 2, the half kneeling press, the durability blueprint you want to build up. Forget the Turkish getup for a moment. I know people love it on Instagram. Unless you're training for kettlebell certification or trying to impress strangers with how slowly you can roll around on the floor, you don't really need it. That's a different story. The better option is the half kneeling press. Here's the deal. Put one knee down, plant the other foot forward like you're about to do a lunge, and then press the kettlebell overhead. Simple, brutal, effective. Why does this work so well? Well, the splint stance forces your core to stabilize so your low back can't cheat. Your hips and glutes have to lock in to keep you from wobbling, and your shoulders don't just press, it also stabilizes, coordinates, and proves it can handle load without crumbling. The half kneeling press is a pressure test for your kinetic chain. If your core, hips, or shoulders are weak links, this move exposes them instantly. And unlike the Turkish getup, you can actually progressively overload it. Go heavier, go strict, go double kettlebells if you want to. Durability isn't about mastering circus tricks, it's about training movements that keep your joints alive and useful 10 years from now. The half kneeling press delivers that without wasting your time. Move number 3, the goblet squat, the anti-bro squat. The barbell back squat gets all the hype, and it's useful, but let's be real, most people butcher it. Their knees cave in, their chest collapses, and they look like they're praying for forgiveness mid-rep up. The kettlebell goblet squat strips away the ego. By holding the bell in front of your chest, you're forced into a more upright torso, better core bracing, and cleaner hip mechanics. It's a teaching tool for how to squat like a human and not a question mark. And it carries over. Want to hike with a pack? Want to pick up heavy shit without tweaking your spine? Goblet squats train your legs, core, and posture for exactly that. Move number 4, the kettlebell clean and press. And this is strength that transfers. Now, I've talked about the barbell clean in particular on this channel and how great it is, but we're gonna one-up this a little bit more into the kettlebell clean and press. It's a move where you take raw power and turn it into functional strength. The clean will teach you how to move weight explosively, but under control. Exactly how you need to when you're handling awkward objects in life. The press, it demands shoulder stability, core tension, and overhead strength in a way machines will never replicate. Clean and press is your gateway drug into total body capability. Stronger shoulders, stronger grip, stronger core, and a body that knows how to transfer power from the ground up. You'll never struggle hoisting a heavy object onto the shelf again with this move. And if you do CrossFit or strongman style training, this move is money in the bank. The last one, move number 5, the kettlebell snatch, the real cardio king. Now, if you notice a lot of these moves here from the kettlebell swing, the kettlebell clean and press, and now the kettlebell snatch, you're all kind of transferring a lot of the same power through the hips into your overhead positions. Now, with the kettlebell snatch and why it separates itself from the kettlebell swing and the clean and press is because you can actually forget about the treadmill for once, forget slogging away on the elliptical while staring at CNN captions. If you want conditioning that builds grit and power, the kettlebell snatch is going to be it. One brutal explosive motion from the ground to overhead in a fluid arc. Done for reps. This move is an all-out assault on your lungs, your grip, and your entire posterior chain. Studies have shown the kettlebell snatches crank up aerobic capacity and anaerobic power at the same time. That's durability we want in our programming. You're training your heart and lungs to keep up with your muscles. It's brutal. Yes, it feels like your soul is escaping through your pores, but nothing matches its carryover into real-world stamina. Now we have one last one, the forgotten hero. Loaded carries with kettlebell. Everyone wants to talk about your swings and your snatches, but let's not ignore the farmer's walk. Pick up 2 heavy bells and start walking. That's it. Simple. Yes. Easy. Cock no. Farmer's walk will build your grip strength, your core stability, your posture, and work capacity faster than almost anything. And that carryover is immense. Every time you drag groceries in one trip, every time you lug a cooler across a field, you'll thank your loaded carries. The kettlebell makes this worse in the best way possible. The offset load challenges your stability even more than dumbbells. The instability, and that's where durability will get forged. Look, anyone can get big in the mirror. That's cosmetic strength. There's nothing wrong with it if that's your goal. But if you want to be strong at 40, 50, 60 and still be able to do shit life throws at you, you need capability. You need durability. Kettlebells deliver both because they demand more than just muscle. Coordination, balance, mobility, and endurance. Capability is being able to respond when life says, here's some chaos, deal with it. Durability is surviving the chaos without snapping like a cheap resistance band. Kettlebells train you for both. Now, there are people who sneer at kettlebells, and they're usually the same ones who can't run a mile, can't touch their toes, and can't lift their suitcase without blowing out a disc. But hey, they might be able to curl 60s on Instagram. Respect, though, for that. Meanwhile, the athlete grinding kettlebell swings, snatches, and carries is out there building real-world capability, looking better without even trying, and not needing 2 weeks of rehab after moving a couch. Here's the quick take at the end of all this. Barbells build your raw power, kettlebells make that power athletic, and sandbags make that athleticism resilient. You need all 3. Kettlebells are a tool, and a damn good one. Use them for what they're best at, building capability and durability. Not Instagram tricks, not TikTok fads, real transferable strength. Because strength without durability is fragile, and fragile doesn't survive. This is Dr. Matt, and we are grit and determined.